We're back for part two of our interview series on the Rare and Real podcast with Skylar Davis, an amazing young woman, lacrosse fanatic, college graduate, but she is living with a rare mutation of CF. And we've heard the first part of her journey today, what it was like growing up, and her advice for pharmaceutical companies thus far. Skylar, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Earlier, we touched on the lack of treatment options, and specifically for you, those that are dealing with the harmful bacteria that can infect the lungs of CF patients. If you could talk about your specific journey and battle with infections, not being eligible for modulators, you often have uh, respiratory infections due to your disease. And what do the treatments look like when you're going through the battle with an infection, both in the at-home setting and in the hospital?
Yes. Well, back to like that really, really big blanket statement, which is that everyone with CF is different. I think that's something that's not as recognized anymore, being that people are on modulators, off modulators. But for me, you know, I've been kind of battling the same bacterias in my lungs for years and years and years. And for me, I don't know anything different, except that they're just getting worse. So for me, my treatments really range on a level of, am I healthy right now? Am I sick right now? And when I'm healthy, I'm spending 4.5 hours doing treatments a day. When I'm sick, it's 8.5 hours. And if I'm sick enough, I'm admitted to the hospital, and my life when I'm there looks so, so different. When I'm at home, I'm completely in control of my environment. I'm in control of what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. And there's a lot of freedom in that, right? Like, to be an adult and to be in your own home and take care of yourself is a freedom. But I also want people to know that that is a privilege. It is a privilege to be able to open your front door and walk outside. When I'm in the hospital, I'm in there for 7 days, and that's a minimum. And I do not leave my room. I'm unable to walk the halls. I'm unable to go outside. There is no windows that are open. I'm in a room for 7 days, and I am completely and utterly centered around my lungs and my health and those treatments. And it becomes draining. And that's something that people don't realize. The media has changed it a lot when you watch TV and you see things like Grey's Anatomy. And that's not real, right? That's not real whatsoever. You're not leaving your hospital room. You're not walking around. You're not having coffee with the nurses. That's not a thing. So for me, it's about having to balance my mental just as much as my physical. I am reaching a stage in my life where we're starting to look towards a lung transplant. I have a lung function of 52% right now, which I talked about previously, but that's when I'm healthy. When I'm sick, I'm looking at a lung function of anywhere from 47% down to like 43. The lowest I've gotten in my life is 38% lung function. And when that starts to slip like that, you start to think about, how much longer do I have left with the lungs that I was born with? And that's a lot to battle mentally. It's a lot to take in. For me, it's something that, while other people are navigating just post grad life, how to do their taxes, how to live on their own, I'm having to do that while also having to step into what it's like to be in your 60s and your 70s and questioning how much time you have left and your lifestyle choices because you're so sick and you can't control it. And it's heavy. It's something that I'm not sure how to do. I don't think I'll ever know how to do it. I don't think anyone ever does. But I'm learning, you know, there are only so many things that work for me now, and there are only so many treatment options, which is different than the majority of people with CF right now. They're experiencing so many more modulators that they qualify for and that are changing their lives, and they're having children, and they're living longer lifespans, and they're having careers. And that's not something that I'm getting to experience right now.
Gotcha. So what would you attribute most of the lung decline to be from? In your words, or when you talk to your physician at your care center, how do they describe to you the perpetual decline that you're experiencing, and what causes that decline over time?
So, in complete honesty, I think that that's something that CF clinics could be better about. I didn't really realize. I equally didn't know the answer to that. I did, but I didn't. Coming into adulthood, I it was kind of sprung on me like, your lungs are declining because of your infections and our inability to remove these bacteria from your lungs. And while that was something that, yes, I was aware of, I was not aware that we simply are just going to have to keep doing the same medications and hope that something changes. Or when that doesn't work out, we're going to try something different. And it became very, very apparent very quickly that we don't have a plan. We don't,
Oh,
because it's just not possible for us to have a plan because there is not a cure. There is not drugs out there right now that say, "Hey, we'll get rid of your Pseudomonas. Hey, we'll take care of that trichosporin in your lungs. Hey, we'll take care of the staph infection you've had for 15 or more years." That's not a thing.
so here, I want to probe deeper on that. So most people think when you get an infection, I take a Z pack or a course of antibiotic and it's gone. But that's not the case for someone living with cystic fibrosis. So you've, you know, Pseudomonas you mentioned a couple times. So how long have you been battling Pseudomonas specifically?
So I've battled Pseudomonas basically since I was like 5 years old. It's always been part of the problem. I don't know a life with CF without Pseudomonas that I can remember. It's always been about waiting for that to flare up, waiting for staph to flare up. So it's harmful. People don't realize how deadly Pseudomonas is. And it's really gotten down to a point where I tell people, yes, I'm going to die from CF. I will, because other people have the ability to have a Pseudomonas infection and get rid of it, right? Do the week of antibiotics and be okay. Cystic fibrosis has made it where I can't do that. But what I'm really dying from is Pseudomonas. That's like really the target problem for me is I can't knock it because it's already dormant in my lungs.
Yeah. So there are specific things about Pseudomonas that make it a really nasty multi-drug resistant bacteria. Its ability to make biofilms, evade resistance against our best drugs. And that's one of the reasons why Vast Therapeutics is so passionate about treating bacteria for which there are no other available treatments. In your words, what have the physicians told you as to why Pseudomonas has set up camp in your lungs for a long period of time? Why can't they get rid of it?
The biofilms. It's I've had Pseudomonas so much in my life that it's now colonized, right? It's multiplied. It's set up camp and it's not going anywhere. It has basically the best way to explain it is it's paying rent. It
Mm.
went in and it bought a biofilm and it pays rent to stay there and it can't be evicted. It's stuck in the sticky, 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 thick mucus in the lining of my lungs, and it's what causes all my problems. Obviously, I would have lung related issues even if I didn't have Pseudomonas, but it would not nearly be as bad. And I would not be as sick as I am, right? My lung function would not have declined so rapidly over 10 years had it not been because of constant Pseudomonas. And it's not something that's easy to stay away from. It's not like seeing black mold on a wall and choosing to walk away from it. Pseudomonas is in so many places and people don't realize it. It's in your shower heads when you take a shower. It's in your fridge faucet when you go to fill up your water bottle. It's in your sink faucet when you go to wash your dishes. It's in the hoses outside. It's in the moisture outside, maybe that's building up on the siding of your house or in the mud and the dirt and the soil that you plant flowers in. It's in the leaves that are piled up on the side of the street. So it's everywhere. It's not something that's easy to get rid of. It's in your car air conditioning vents. It's everywhere and you can't see it sometimes. And that's the problem. And it's impossible to stay away from.
If you could go back and talk to your younger self with CF, what advice would you give that young girl when she first found out there was a mutation that you were carrying the only one of in the United States?
I think I very quickly, that realization, I remember exactly what I was doing and exactly where I was. And curiosity got the best of me. And I looked up my mutations in the CF database to find that, I was the only living one. And that was rough to already be a part of a disease that is rare, right? Out of 8 billion people in the world, only 100,000 of them globally have CF. And in the United States, 40,000 roughly. So to be the one out of 8 billion people is a devastating feeling. You already feel so alone in this disease, and to feel like I'm not the one that's being researched, I'm not the one that's next on the list to have an answer was tough, especially in middle school. How do you don't wrap your head around that as an adult, let alone as a child. And I think if I could talk to that version of myself now, I'd be way more honest with her. I would say that feeling doesn't get better, it's gonna get worse. They're working towards curing CF, they're not working towards ending Pseudomonas, and that's what you need. So I would tell her and encourage her to continue to talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more change will happen, right? If you want something bad enough, you'll make sure that you're doing everything that you can to put a stop to it. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And that's exactly the, mindset I had then, and it's still the mindset I have now. I would tell her not to be afraid to be the only one. Growing up, athletics being such a big part of my life, and softball and running and lacrosse and cheerleading and all these different things that I was doing, I was the only one. There was not a pro athlete in the media who had CF, who was talking about a struggle and sharing their life. And so that was on me to be the only one to experience it and go through it and just deal with it. And so now I've left that up to me now to talk about it so that when another girl or boy goes out on a lacrosse field, they know that there's someone else out there who did do it and can do it,
Absolutely.
so they can do it too.
Wow, it's true inspiration. Um, Skylar, what gives you the most hope right now in the future of CF treatments?
Truly, there's only a couple of things. Vast Therapeutics is really the only thing that I have a lot of hope in right now, and that's the honest truth. They are the only ones doing what needs to be done, which is targeting Pseudomonas. If I can put a stop to the Pseudomonas infections and flare ups that I'm having in my lungs, I do believe that I could slow the progression of my disease. I could buy myself some more time. I could maybe actually get to marry the man that I love, and I could actually have kids and continue to pursue coaching college lacrosse and being an elementary art teacher, because those are the things about myself aside from CF that are so important. And Vast feels like it's giving me an opportunity to start believing again that I can do those things. And I'll get to that point again in my life.
Well, we certainly don't want you to feel like you don't have any hope because Vast is developing its experimental treatment at a rapid pace. We're looking forward to getting it into clinical trials later this year, as you are well aware. we're going to focus on the 10% of the patient population that's still living without modulators because they're suffering from Pseudomonas the most. They haven't had the big wave of relief that the modulator therapies have made for so many with CF. So we're really focused on that 10%. And believe it or not, your story will resonate with a lot of other individuals struggling with Pseudomonas, other respiratory infections. And we're aiming to bring a cue from the body that can release nitric oxide and treat those bacteria with something that truly can penetrate the biofilms. We're kind of like the evictor or the collection agency in your rental example. We're finally going to get that Pseudomonas out of there. And we do believe that eradicating Pseudomonas can make a meaningful transformational change in the lives of people with CF like yourself. For those people that are living without CF, what's the one thing you wish they knew about the people that are?
We need to get rid of the vision we have in our head of what sick people look like. Because do I look sick? No. Do I look like I have the same lung function as your great grandma? No. I'm fighting for my life. This is what dying looks like. Whatever you think it looks like, get it out of your head. I think the biggest thing that I struggle with is dealing with public comments related to my coughing, related to my clearing mucus out of my lungs. The biggest thing for me when I was playing lacrosse was being around people my age who their inability to run down the field or score a goal or whatever it might be was related to something that they could control, right? They were capable of conditioning and going and exercising and becoming an athlete that they wanted to be. And the same goes for me as well, except that there were times where that was completely out of my control. And I would cough and cough and cough and cough and cough to clear the mucus so that I could be the athlete that my team needed me to be, just for the opposing team to go, "You're smoking a pack a day? You play lacrosse. Why would you do that?" And then I'd have to say, "I have a lung disease." And then it got really quiet, right? And people become so shocked when I say, "Yeah, I very heavily believe that I probably have 10 years to live or less." They're like, "You're 23 years old. You look so healthy. You act fine when you're with a group of people." That does not change me being sick. Just because I don't look like it doesn't mean I'm not. Just because someone looks healthy doesn't mean that they are. And being someone who recognizes that you're an able bodied person, that's your job to help those of us who aren't. Talk about the change that we need because it's really hard to be part of the population of people who are disabled bodies. And we've gotten so far away from what people believe a disabled and sick person look like. And, that's on the media and that's on us to change what we're telling people and what we're marketing to people. And we're giving misinformation and that comes with lack of education. And that's why I talk about my disease. That's why I do things like this. That's why I public speak. So there is no misinformation happening. So you're fully aware that just because I look healthy, it doesn't mean that I am.
One of the biggest things you hear in the CF community is race for a cure or chasing for a cure. When you hear those words, well, how does that resonate with you personally?
I have another very unpopular opinion, but I have spent the last probably 10 years of my life, which says a lot because then that puts me back at like 13 years old. But I've spent a lot of that time realizing I won't live to see a cure, and I know that. I I'm in therapy for that, to be completely and utterly raw and real about that. It's a mental battle. I have come to terms with the fact that I will not be cured of cystic fibrosis. And the work that we're doing is incredible and it is important because we will get there and there will be a cure one day, but it won't be in my lifetime and it won't be for someone like me. Being one of the only ones with a rare mutation so far down the list and still be one of the only ones living with it is it's devastating. And for me, the race for a cure is it's not for a cure. It's a race for treatment to slow the progression of my disease. I need something targeting what's hurting me the most. And being that I am allergic to all penicillins and all cephalosporins and vancomycin and all these things that are out there to treat lung infections, I can't use them. And I'm running out of time. I'm running out of options. And in a world where we have so much technology and we've grown so much as a healthcare community and society, for me to not have options speaks volumes as to where I'm at in my decline with my disease.
So, if you could ask any of the pharmaceutical companies actively in drug development for innovation in CF for one therapy, what would be on your wish list? What's at the top of your list?
Something that eradicates Pseudomonas, something that breaks biofilms in general, something that has the ability to be microbial. Like I my lungs are so ridden with bacteria that there's just not they're up against a wall. I'm up against a wall. And my lungs are filled with just junk and bacteria. And while it's not going to harm anyone else if I breathe on them, but it's harming me. And that's a mental battle that I wake up with every single morning. I'm having to do these medications that, newsflash, don't work. I understand your drug company worked really hard to put that out, and it is a stepping stone in research. But now it no longer works because the bacterias have seen it and they're resistant to it now. And I need something to be done that can focus on eradicating a biofilm like that. It needs to penetrate and it needs to get deeper so I can have a longer time in between lung infections. I can spend less time in the hospital. I can go outside when I want to because that's a privilege. And I just want to see something being done for those of us suffering Pseudomonas because that's more than 10% of people.
Certainly, Vast feels your frustration, and it's one of the things that fuels our team and motivates us to keep our feet moving every single day. There are no good, effective non-antibiotic treatments. You mentioned the problem of drug resistance over time. You mentioned the problem of penetrating biofilms, not to mention the off-target effects on other organs in your body that I'm sure you have to measure and monitor. There's reported hearing loss with long-term chronic antibiotic usage. And so these are just some of the things that we're looking to really elevate the standard of care and do away with managing the disease, and keeping you stable is not something that we aspire for. We aspire to eradicate Pseudomonas, get your lungs free of those harmful bacteria, and restore that quality of life that you would be living otherwise without those deadly bacteria.
Absolutely.
Skylar, you talked about that moment when you were in middle school that you found out you had one of the rarest mutations in CF. What does that mean now as you're an adult living with this and managing the disease?
For me, when I found out, it was so devastating, and I don't think I had the responsibility or the maturity yet with certain things that I dealt with to have a respect for it, but now I think I do. For me, it's become a really big symbol of what I've overcome, who I am, how I've gotten where I've gotten, and it's something that I tattooed on my body, so it's constantly with me. And this is the first mutation, this is the second mutation. And getting this tattoo really for me signified I can be in control of this, right? There are a lot of bad things that can happen to me because of those two mutations, but it's about how I respond to it. It's about who I decide to be outside of those mutations. And it was a really, really special thing to get to do. I got it done with my mom and my brother, two of the closest people to me.
Did they
And
get one as well?
they got, so this is my handwriting. So I wrote this on a piece of paper, and they got my handwriting tattooed on their body. So they wanted a way to show their support. And sometimes people don't realize that CF is just as much of a family struggle as it is an individual. To have to watch somebody go through that is a different type of issue in itself. And my mom and my brother have been the two people to experiencing experience that firsthand and take care of my mental health when those things have gone downhill. And for them to have done that for me was their way of saying, we're always going to be in this with you, and your battle is our battle.
Well, they've done a fabulous job taking care of you. You have a bright, amazing young future ahead of you. We look forward to the next episode of the Rare and Real podcast series, where we discuss rare diseases and real stories with patients like Skylar Davis. Skylar, we're really appreciative of you being here today. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks.